So the best kind of shelter for wildlife is basically a well-managed habitat that can provide both shelter and cover for wildlife.
You know, just keeping something beautiful, natural, and lush is perfect. But in some instances where it's been disturbed in the past or where there's activities taking place that have taken away some of that shelter, you might need to supplement it a little bit.
A nest box is an artificial box that can provide a nesting or denning habitat for a selected species.
There's several different styles of nest boxes. Most prominent one that you probably know is called an eastern bluebird house is what it's typically marketed as. And that's going to be used by most of your smaller cavity nesting birds. And so that's going to be things like your chickadees and your titmice and your Carolina wrens. But also there are purple martin houses, which are a selection of gourds all tightly packed together. And then you can also have larger nest boxes, owl boxes, and the like. Also, chimney swifts require artificial chimneys, and so those are a very specific type of nest box, but all of them function by providing a habitat for that species to build a nest in. So there's a few different requirements that you want to look at in the construction of one of these things. First, you want to build it out of a nice, hard, sturdy wood, like a pine or a cedar or a fir, and it needs to be untreated wood and bare wood. You don't want to put paint on it. It needs to have a ventilated roof with a nice slope on it. It needs to have drainage holes in the bottom of the base. The hole needs to be up towards the top of it. And one incredibly important feature is a way to access the inside of it, a little door on the side, so that you can go in there and you can clear out the old nesting material at the end of the season.
This is a bluebird house. They're about 200 feet apart. It hangs at about 5 feet, and it puts the opening right at my eye level there. It's facing east because, one, to avoid the harsh setting sun, we get a prevailing southeasterly wind that will help to ventilate it in the summertime. And most of our storms come out of the south or northwest, and so they'll hit the back of it and not the opening to it. We hang our bluebird houses on the edge of a large open area such as this meadow. It gives them a good hunting ground for insects and also a wide field of view to keep their eye out for both predators and food. We're away from the woods at least 50 feet from the tree edge, and then they've got a wide view out there across the meadow.
So something else to consider when you're establishing nest boxes is protecting these nest boxes from predators. There's a variety of predator guards available. You can utilize a baffle, which you can buy at your local hardware store, or even a predator control guard, like a conical metal guard or a collar guard.
For preventing stuff that can chew, you can put a little bit of metal around the opening, which will prevent them from making that opening larger, which squirrels will do it and raccoons will do it too.
There are a variety of different websites online where you can purchase those bird boxes from if you like to. Keep in mind that there's a variety of species out there, and each species will require a different type of nest box, so just make sure you do your research on that.
If you're interested in building your own, you can go to the Cornell website All About Birds, and they have really good schematics on there for a wide variety, I think 50 plus different species. And so you can build it for those things that you're interested in attracting to your property. When you put them out on the landscape, you can't just set them and forget them. You want to go out and you want to check them at least twice a year. So I recommend once in the spring, right before the breeding season kicks off, right around mid-March at the latest. And then once in the fall, if there's anything damaged or wrong with the nest boxes, to replace it before that nesting season comes around.
So bat box is basically going to help provide shelter and cover and a nesting area for the bats that may be in your area. There's a variety of different styles of bat boxes that are available, and actually the bigger the better. The more room you have available for bats to roost in, well then the better. Around dusk in the afternoons, they come out, fly, and so you can see whether the bats are actually utilizing those nest boxes.
Brush piles are a great management option for supplemental shelters. If you're already out there doing brush management and you've done all the work to knock the brush over, well, instead of piling it all up and burning it or hauling it off somewhere and doing all that expense, you can actually just leave it in a big brush pile, and those will provide shelter for reptiles and for small mammals. grassland nesting birds, ground nesting birds, quail. It will also be a good place for some reptile species to come and forage and hunt for mammals as well, so you can get all kinds of different critters in a brush pile.
Brush piles is a very good practice, especially when your limiting factors is actually cover on a landscape. And there's a variety of techniques. Basically, you can stack up a whole bunch of old loose litter that you have, or tree limbs, stack them up into like a TP formation, where it's generally about 4 to 5 feet in diameter as well as height.
And you're gonna have a requirement based on your tax appraisal district and your region on how many brush piles you need to have in a given area, and that's gonna be specific to where you're at. Slash retention is a similar strategy to doing a brush pile or anything like that. It's when you're already cutting stuff down, and that's just leaving it where it lies. And that's a perfectly viable form of supplemental shelter right there. We tend to see a really good mix of brush and different woody species growing along fence lines. And so rather than keeping those fence lines perfectly clear and cutting it down all the time, you can let it kind of grow back up and provide some nice supplemental shelter that way.
So the minimum requirement for fence line management is going to be the length of 100 yards per quarter mile of fence required annually to qualify.
Managing a hay meadow or a pasture for wildlife is another really great strategy where you don't have to do a whole lot. I really like this strategy because you're going to leave a nice no-mow zone during a period of time. So you're designating an area on your property where there's already grass, and you're going to not mow it from about April 1st through mid-July to the end of July, and then allow that grass to grow up nice and tall. It's going to provide nesting habitat for grassland birds. It's going to provide fawn cover for white-tailed deer and other small mammals. It'll give them protection from predators, and it'll also give them protection from the thermal conditions of Texas when it starts heating up towards the end of the summer.
And basically you mow it in sections, or maybe just mow in strips or lines, or even like a mosaic pattern.
Mosaic will give you a lot of different edge habitat that a lot of species like to use, which is where two habitat types meet. So some short grass and some tall grass.
Half cutting is a habitat management technique where we take usually mesquite trees, but it can be other species that do not provide good cover, particularly for quail, and shape those trees into a shape that provides more cover, especially from predators for quail. Typically, we're looking for a mesquite tree that's somewhere between 6 and 12 feet tall with multiple stems is the really important part. 6 to 10 branches and smooth bark branches at waist height, because that's where we're going to cut them. And they need to be smooth bark so they're young enough to bend instead of breaking. So you're going to use either a handsaw, or nowadays they have these battery-powered mini chainsaws, and you cut about halfway through the branch, usually somewhere between waist and chest height, and put pressure on the outer end of the branch until it starts to break and bend over. An ideal tree will have enough branches that you can cut most of the branches down, splaying them out from around the tree all the way around if you can, and still leave a few branches upright to continue to provide vertical cover and to help the tree survive the half cutting process. So you'll want to cut several trees in an area to provide good cover. While a nice upright tree like this may provide good shade for livestock, quail need brush cover that has branches all the way down to the ground to provide overhead cover from predators. And that's what we're trying to create with half cutting. This tree, if you look at the bark, it also has rough bark pretty far out on the branches, which means it is too mature to be suitable for half cutting, and the limbs become too brittle. If somebody is considering using half cutting as a tool on their property, I'd recommend visiting with your local wildlife biologist to see if it's something they would actually recommend for your property, and maybe they can help pick out some trees that would be suitable to get you started.
A snag is simply a dead tree that's left standing where it passed away. So that tree is going to be dead out on the landscape, and it's going to be sitting there, and rather than cutting it down and getting rid of it because it's ugly or because you're worried about it, you leave it where it's sitting. So a dead snag is going to be decomposed over time, and so that's going to allow mosses to come in there, fungi, insects, which is also going to bring in all those species that come and eat them. That's the reason why you always see woodpeckers hanging out on them.
So if you don't have any snags currently existing on your property, you could also create them by basically utilizing the technique called girdling. What you're doing is cutting the perimeter of the bark on that plant species, not allowing the nutrients and water to go up and down for that plant to grow. Over time, that tree will die.
You want a minimum of 5 snags per acre on 5% of the acreage, and that must be retained or created annually to qualify. And it's always important to check your local tax appraisal district for your region and see what is appropriate, because those management practices could vary a little bit region to region. Woody plant and growth establishment is going to be simply planting woody growth. So it's going to be putting shrubs or trees out on the landscape that are naturally occurring and native to your region of Texas to build that area back up.
This is a Texas redbud. They tolerate the Texas heat, they tolerate the alkaline soil, and they tolerate the lack of moisture that we have out here. They survive.
If you were to consider to do shrub establishment, consider utilizing plants that grow soft mast or even hard mast, like acorns or even berries.
In order to qualify for woody plant and shrub establishment, you're going to want to plant a minimum of 500 seedlings on an annual basis, or 4 rows in a 120-foot width by a 1/4 mile in length. You know, woody plant establishment can be a very time-consuming and financially expensive management practice, and so it's definitely not going to be appropriate for every landowner and not appropriate for every habitat type. But if you have the resources to get it done, then that's fantastic. But it also highlights a reason why protecting this habitat, while it's already established naturally, is so important. And so protecting that good mixed brush or mixed woodland is really, really important to prevent having to go in and reseed it after the fact.
For more information and links to other resources, refer to the video description below.